Thank you. All right, so it is 7 o'clock, March 28th. This is the Budget and Board of Finance budget meeting, and we are calling the meeting to order. Not necessary to seat alternates this evening. We have no minutes to approve. So we'll move right on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Karen?
I think that's just the mouse.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Nobody for present to speak?
I just had a question.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to speak on the planning and zoning budget. I didn't know if it would be better to do that later in the meeting or if you want me to talk on it now.
You know what, why don't you talk on it now?
Okay, so I was just going through some of the feedback that I think the board was considering making adjustments to that budget, among others. Obviously, you have a monumental task in front of you, and I get that. I just wanted to sort of reiterate and point out that with our budget specifically, there are two increases to that in total, one of which comes from a line item that's being brought into our budget, but was signed and agreed upon previously. So that increase isn't mine. It's part of a contract that the town has had in place. The other item is a $2,000 increase related to Laserfiche. Again, that's a product that we have. It is part of the contract and a service that's been in place for at least 15 years with the town. And I just wanted to mention, I guess, in summary, I looked at the land use budget over the last several years, and we have grown, or our budget in total has increased approximately at half the pace that the town budget has. We've increased, excluding salaries, between 4% and 5% over approximately 6 years. Basically by necessity, we haven't added new things. So I know you have to cut from something, but this is to fund essentially a continuation of what we're doing now. So I just wanted to point that out, and certainly will answer any questions that you have. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for present to speak?
You want to talk
Go
about
ahead, Phil.
Novus?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I've had a chance to look at some of the cuts since the last meeting, and I'm just requesting that you put 10,000 back onto salt, just to bring us up to the current level of salt. We were at 15, we asked for 16, you cut us to 14. If we could stay at 15, that would keep us at the current level. I don't think we can count on a price reduction in salt. And under bulky waste, you cut 15,000 at the last meeting, and from what I understand, talking to Troy, we've got a contract change coming up, and that's to make sure we cover our contract change, to make sure that our waste goes away. We have been going down lately, but the contract is changing, so the price may be going back up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Phil?
So on the Board of Ed side, you had asked to try and close the gap some. We went back through in the combination of items that you had taken last week and some of the things that we had under new information. And again, budget process is always ongoing. We're always trying to negotiate better rates. The areas where we saw reductions, we had potentially talked early on in this budget process about moving Novus, our IT firm, from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. That was something that when we signed on with them, that was their hope, that we would be able to long-term start to minimize the number of on-site staff needed each day of the week. And so just talking with the town, with Peter and I, and looking at the numbers, it's, I think, about a $30,000 savings between the two of us. On the Board of Ed side, it's a $10,000 savings going to 4 days a week. And Novus thinks it's a feasible move as well. We would still have on-site support, so that's a $10,000 savings of the Board of Ed budget. Our cyber insurance, This is the first time we've had cyber insurance. And we could not, Don and I talked about trying to get onto, the fiscal year cycle. And we could not do a 3-month contract with them, they wouldn't allow it. So we were either gonna have to budget more or go to a 15-month contract. And so we just paid out of the current budget for a 15-month contract. They put us on the fiscal cycle, so we took $6,000 out of next year's budget. That was $6,604. Our workers' comp on town side and Board of Ed side, again, that's, you wait for rates from some of these people. It came in just like insurance, we found some savings there. So there's a $3,697 savings on workers' comp for Board of Ed. The Board of Ed just signed on for a new English language arts program at their March meeting. And because of that, we are eliminating one of our online subscriptions. So that would save $5,100. Good news on the special ed side, which is always good news. And again, this is something that we continue to do. You knew pretty much right away when we had new outplacements. We weren't happy with the rates that we were given for transportation. And so just in collaboration, looking at other towns, and what we could do in other services, we actually were able to combine transportation, so meaning basically 2 for 1 or 3 for 2 type thing, and it saved us $30,000. So there was $29,558 savings in transportation, which is outstanding. And then we had already eliminated the maintenance of $20,000. That was in the Board of Ed operating budget. That's a total of $75,303 off of the last number that was approved by the board. If you add in the CIP number of $64,000, that's $139,303 off of Board of Ed projects, whether it's operating budget or Board of Selectmen's budget. So our new number that we would request you do for appropriations, instead of the 8.76% increase, we're actually under 8. It went from $9,953,075 to $9,877,772. Again, $9,877,772, and that would be the request from the Board of Education.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Do we have anybody else? Okay.
Yeah, just to add on to that, we have looked into the 4-day support from Novus for the government side, which would be, we believe, a $20,000 savings. We haven't gotten the quote from Novus yet. We're hoping to get it this afternoon. But seeing as how the pound staff has gone for the most part, I won't beat you up. For the most part, they've gone to a 4-day work week. I don't know why we need 5-day on site. That's what's good.
Okay,
We're looking strongly at that for $20,000 savings.
all right, thanks, Peter. Do we have anybody else? Oh, okay,
We were just doing greetings.
okay. Peter?
Peter Wilson, 97 Trask Road. I wanted to, sorry, scrunch in some screen from here somewhere. I want to address the overall budget process tonight because I know you're going to be doing appropriations this evening. That's an important function for you and you want to get it done. It's become apparent in your last couple of weeks to many townspeople, including myself, that we're facing a rather substantial mill rate increase. Even after the diligent reductions by Northward at the last meeting going through the general government budget, by my count, we're somewhere between 3.25 and 3.5 mil increase, which is a staggering increase for a town of our size and needs. And I think the problem, this is my personal comment, lies in what you've been referring to in your budget discussions as the shock absorber. The $1 million that is in the budget each year with CIP that was ostensibly to fund the school improvements. And it's actually a misnomer, no harm intended. It's really a shock creator because it's creating, by moving that money in, it's increasing the budget each year by that amount, and that amount has to be raised by taxation. If you couple that with the large increases in the Board of Ed budget. And I'm not referring to the special outlays, because I respect Bill's position on that, about the variability of that, but the operational increases beyond that, which is an additional $200,000 plus. This is unsustainable, just through taxation. So what I'd like to encourage is that this board schedule a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the CIP group, and seriously consider bonding the school improvements. I find myself, it's difficult for me to say this because I'm of the school of thought that Wellington generally has expressed where we pay as we go and we don't take on debt. But it just doesn't seem like it's possible anymore, given just everything that everybody wants all at once. And that's what seems to be happening to us. I appreciate your time and diligence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Do we have anybody else for present to speak? Jim Marshall?
Hi, guys. Jim Marshall, Fisher Hill Road. I just want to speak to correction or misunderstanding, I think, in the last speaker's comments related to the CAP budget. And I know Christina and I know they can talk to it. Christina and Steph can talk to it in more detail, but the capital improvement funds this year are not a driver of a tax increase, period. They are not increasing your mill rate, period, by any significant amount compared to the rest of the budget. The increase, the driver is operational budgets. So I just think that needs to be clearly stated. The CIP committee was very cognizant of the fact that this is a tough budget year. We probably should be doing more. We're not. It's as simple as that. So Peter, you can say it as often as you want, but the CIP plan is not raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have any other comments for present to speak? Okay, so we will move on now to new business. We're in appropriations, and last week we were discussing where we could save money in the operations budgets of the different departments. And what I was thinking we could do tonight is just pick up and start with, we've had a couple of people speak tonight regarding money that has been removed from their budgets and that they would like to see it placed back in there. So if you'd like, we could start discussing those before we move on to the fire departments and Board of Education.
Can I ask a question? So when we last left off, well, I guess this is a question for Donna to make sure that all the numbers that we talked about last week are, and plus the new ones that were mentioned today, because I see Bill's number that he was saying is in here. So with all of that, we're at a 2.93 increase.
Yes.
And I thought it was lower than that last week.
No, we were around 3.
Okay,
It's 3.
all right. Okay, I think it's because I was putting in more for the coming out of the fund balance. That might be why I had it in my head. It was a little lower. Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Mike, are you saying that $2,000 out of planning and zoning is gonna hurt you bad?
It's gonna prohibit us from being able to continue to run the laser program, which is how we host the documents that we provide on the public portal. So when residents use our GIS system, they can click on their property and then view all of the property files associated. So realtors, contractors, attorneys, you can see that in real time. We have had the system for many years, but we published the portal during COVID because people access these documents all hours of all days. So that's an increase in an existing software. It doesn't, it's not some new initiative.
Okay, don't look at it as a laser fiche program, say just $2,000 out of your entire budget. It's $2,000 out of your entire budget have a negative effect. Because some line items go unspent year over year, you know, or partially.
Yeah, a portion of the budget is related to expenses that we can't plan for, like legal notices.
Yeah.
So taking out those aside, everything else is exactly flat. So, we wouldn't be able to fund it all if we ended up needing that budget. We'd be pulling from something else, hoping we didn't need it.
We're doing similar things like that in other budgets. It's like a 1.2% increase or cut out of $160,000 budget. So it's 2,000.
Yeah.
So you don't think there would be, you know, feeding from other lines that could cover that in over the course of a year?
It's certainly possible, because if we don't get applications that require all that noticing, then there would be funds in there to at least cover that in part. We don't make, and in some cases, we lose money on applications because of the costs of legal notices, as I talked about last time.
Right.
So if all of our applications require legal notices, we won't have that money, right? It's not anything that generates income, period. So if all of that, if that comes in during that fiscal year, we can't pull from that. If we don't, then that money stays unspent. And then the other piece that you might see when you look at how much has been spent to date, the contracts that we have related to the programs that we have in the office all come due right towards the end of the year. So we have them sit because, you know, June, July is when those invoices come in. So it may look like we're not spending them. That's just because of the way those contracts fall. We don't chip away, it's just a one and done. The only thing that I will say, which will happen for next year, is I was able to negotiate with OpenGov, who provides our building permit software, which is the line item that we're taking into our budget that was previously in building. They are cutting their, they call it an uplift, but they're reducing their increase by half over the next 3 years. So they were originally, in the previously signed contract, it was 5% per year. They've agreed to a 2.5% per year increase. So the total savings of that is, you know, between $1,000 and $1,500. So over time, we'll have a little bit, but it won't cover enough in the end for the laser increases, which is why that 2,000 is in there.
Any other discussions on that?
Mike, can you speak to economic development at all?
Yes.
Yeah, that $5,000 that we pulled out of there.
So the
What's that gonna
5,000,
affect?
the 5,000 was specifically put in a couple of years ago to fund the commission's town welcome signage. The intent was to put in between 4 and 6 signs. The cost of the sign was too much to fund in any one year, so that we have been cobbling 5,000 across 2 budget years to basically purchase the signs. So we're halfway through, we've purchased 2 signs, and those will be getting installed now that the ground is thawed. So if the 5,000 comes out, that's essentially what that would be. So the 2 signs that they put in would be what that would cover, or what that would pull out of there, so they wouldn't put any more in.
How many members are in the commission right now?
We have 4, and I think there's, as of the next Board of Selectmen meeting, we'll have 5. We have a new member, so we have 4 current, 1 new. Which is the commission is 5 full members, so as of next week, we'll have 5 full members.
Who do you have as chair now?
Right now, Matt is acting as interim chair. And they've been kind of working on consensus with things, trying to figure out how to, obviously Matt has a lot on his plate, so he was trying to, I think, hand it off. But he's been chairing the meetings.
I know it's difficult for him to do night meetings so now too, so
Yeah, we moved
that
the
slows
date.
things down.
Yeah, we moved the date to try to accommodate what works best for him. And there's been some other members who've had some things come up unexpectedly, but we're, now moving forward and are underway with the strategic plan. So, we're kind of, the commission's pretty well focused at this point on kind of how things are gonna look moving forward. New member always helps, obviously. So, we're chipping away at that stuff.
So that $5,000 would have been specifically for signs.
That, yeah, when Rick Maloney was chair, that 5,000 was added to the budget specifically for the sign.
In this period where EDC has kind of been on a slower tempo, because there've been a lot of injured list folks and everything, have you seen any economies from not meeting as often? I know there was a period last year where they didn't meet for like 4 months. I'm kind of thinking, we're in a similar rebuilding mode now.
So my firm has a contract with the EDC, which is separate from what we do with planning and zoning. And since COVID, we have had a lot of stuff to do. We basically, on behalf of the commission, administered the entire business resiliency investment grant, which was the small business grant that we funded, town funded through ARPA. So we administered that. There were legal agreements required with all of those things. We did the RFP process to go through and have the welcome signage project. We did all of the work related to the strategic plan. So we did the request, which we wrote and sent to ARPA, and then drafted the RFP, prepared the evaluation criteria for the commission, went through those RFPs with them. We agreed that the first round didn't provide any viable candidates, went back out to bid a second time. We do the minutes, so there's no recording secretary paid. That came out of the budget several years ago. And have met with, several business owners and just fielding those types of questions. We've had, not recently, but, at various points, sort of facilitated conversations that the EDC has wanted to have with other people, including state organizations. So there's a significant amount of sort of the back end stuff that a staff person might do if they were here. And that hasn't really changed because the commission hasn't met. It was more a function of not having the quorum of people to have that meeting, but we were still doing all of those outreach items. We were putting together a business list. We did a business survey. We did a lot of COVID related stuff, pushing out information so people understood what grants and things were available to small businesses. And now we're basically managing the strategic plan consultant. We were in town this week setting up interviews. Some of the people that they interviewed are sitting in this room. We did a tour of town, trying to get them engaged with that local business core group. So that there's a lot of management that goes into those things.
Who's in charge of the sign project? Is there a point person on EDC that's running that?
There isn't a point person. We basically do everything at the meetings with the groups. They did the RFP, they selected the design that they liked, they selected as a couple of locations. We drafted the legal agreements and then had them reviewed, had them executed. We met with the property owners just this past week. I met with the property owner to go over where the sign was gonna go, make sure they were comfortable. So we've been doing everything based on consensus.
So I was at a sign shop this week and they had a couple of signs in there. They weren't completed for Wellington, welcome signs. So have those been paid for?
Yeah, so the two signs that we bid through the process were paid for. We have the locations. We wanted to have an agreement. We wanted to keep them out of the state right away for obvious reasons. So we have an agreement in place now so they can be placed on the business owner's property. So those signs have been paid for and that money's come out of the budget.
Okay, so then what's the $5,000 going to be allocated for?
They wanted to do it for major gateways. So it was, basically one sign per year. So we bought two signs with the previous fiscal year and this fiscal year with the, 10,000. So then they wanted to basically finish it all out. Pay as you go type of.
Can you tell us where they're going?
Yeah, so The one that will probably be installed first is gonna be going on the south end of, River Road, right at the Mansfield line. So as you come into South Wilmington from Mansfield, the other one that's purchased is, plans to go right at the intersection on the Dollar General parcel, so as you're coming around by Phelps instead of that island there, just behind the guardrail to get it out of the right of way. And then from there, we'll probably go to the Ashford Town line if the money is kept. We've talked about working with other groups to perhaps do some beautification stuff around it and, you know, opportunities for local businesses to sponsor them, but, at this point, just trying to get them installed.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, it's just in a tough budget year, you know, we're gonna
Yeah.
put a pretty substantial tax increase on people. Signs are nice, don't get me wrong. And they do like that, you know, something when you come into the town and see that, but that doesn't sound like a critical need to me. That's just my opinion.
I mean, we're making progress, so, you know.
Yeah, we've got 2 of them up, you know, and there's nothing saying next year we can't do some more, but it just. I think it's-
You mean no one's gonna come to us and say, great cut?
Well, you know, honestly,
Honestly, I don't need
years
that.
ago, when we first started talking about this, I'm so glad that it's actually happening. But when we first started talking about it, we were trying to find businesses that would sponsor each one and pay for them. And then also be in charge of the continued maintenance. So as time goes on, taking care of it, doing the flowers around it, whatever, and they could get a little placard or something that says sponsored by. And I think we had a couple of interested businesses who maybe would want to do that. And maybe that's another way to get them paid for. I don't know. I'm not volunteering to ask, but I'm just saying.
Is that what Tallinn does? Does
I
Tallinn do
think
that?
Talon does that, yeah, I'm not sure, I think, like the one off the highway, it used to have a little
Yeah.
thing. And Ellington has the, yeah, I'm not sure, but where there's a will, there's a way sometimes.
Right, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on now to the fire department budget.
Is it okay if we ask Pete to expand a little bit on what he said about the cuts? I just had a couple
Yeah.
questions on that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Pete, I just wondered if you could kind of say a little bit more, because the bulky waste thing isn't a law yet, right?
It's not a law yet, but we
Yeah.
do have, the company that does our waste takeaway has changed. It's no longer DeVivo,
It's Casteller.
yeah. And our contract with them expires this year and we're expecting a bump in it. So I wanna make sure that we cover the ability to take the waste out of town. That's just one of the things that I think that government is really, that's a core, you know, charge of government is getting rid of garbage and plowing streets. And, that's why I'd like to add the other 10,000, half the money back into salt. I don't think that it's, salt's gonna get cheaper, so I'd like to keep it at least the same and pray for more good weather. I don't think praying for good weather is a good budgeting, tool, but it's what we got.
What do they have right now for reserves as far as salt goes?
We just got a load of it.
They got a load, but and we should be good for this year and the first part of the winter, but you know, we don't know. The reason we got it now is because we ran out of it this winter, and so it was a good winter for us. And like I said, I don't think that, assuming because last winter we didn't have much snow, the next winter we won't have much snow, it's a good planning tool.
This may be a silly question. Is there a way we could get salt from Union, since they never really pay everything they're supposed to pay for the ambulance? And then we like kind of.
Yeah, that is a silly question. Yeah, I don't know how Union runs their salt. we don't get salt from other towns, we get it from a salt contractor. There's two, and one of them's Morton, and I don't remember the name of the other one. But the other one delivers quicker and costs less, and that's why we go with them.
It's really Morton.
Really Morton, yeah. See, you know, when it rains, it pours.
Well,
Oh, and to your point last week, Stephanie, the entire town crew has already taken the Yukon class in salt spreading. So we're not gonna get
I
any
know
more.
that they've told me that before.
What?
They've told me that. You mean, you would think we've already seen our economies of,
The-
from that
the-
training?
Right, but the economies of training, I talked to Troy about it, they've extended out the training and it's, you know, what we're seeing is what we need, so.
Okay, but that may be an impact that we haven't seen a full year of yet. But at any rate, the reason that we kind of looked at it is we spent in the last full fiscal year about 113 grand. We upped it to 140 grand in the current year. And we're upping it to 160. So we're not really cutting this, what has been
I
and
believe
what has
last year
been
was
spent.
150, because I know that's what I paid. I
That's
signed
what
off
you,
a bill for
that's what you spent,
150.
was that for the one load that you just, that you
That,
all,
that was to bring us up to this current year.
Yeah. Okay,
So I, you know, once I signed the ticket for 150, I figured 150 was a good number.
you know, I know what you're saying, Pete. It's just that, you know, Public Works overall, at least their ask is 15% up year over year. I gotta think if they're 10,000 short in salt, they'll find it. You know, I
I've
mean,
made-
if
I've made
we
my
can't,
ask.
yeah, I know. I'm just looking at the overall here and being kind of a hard ass.
Pete, worst case, you just come before us, right, if you need it.
I will
Yeah,
come.
we're not gonna keep it, you
I'll
know.
make it here.
I don't see you saying no to salt if you're running low.
Plus Big White has port and salt.
I saw Morton Salt Lake place in Texas, me and Ethan checked it out, huge operation. It's
The
amazing.
mountains of.
Pete, how, the other 100,000 some odd, whatever it was that we took out, can you speak to where that came out of?
Yeah, that, Don and we just went over those numbers with Troy. What they did was they took the crack sealing budget, the chip sealing budget, and the asphalt budget, combined the whole thing into the same line, so it would be the same amount, and then they asked for $150,000 more. The reason they asked for $150,000 more was so that we could meet the road repairs as suggested by the study the town paid for. The town paid $40,000 last year for a study on asphalt maintenance, and they suggested we up that because what we want to do is we want to make sure our repairs are at least at the same rate as our deterioration. We don't want to fall behind. You know, the Board of Selectmen offered to cut 75 out of that, and you guys took 100.
So it
You know.
came right out of that.
What?
It came right out of that.
Came right out of that. That's $100,000, came right out of asphalt.
And that's, but then it pretty much doubled more than doubled the budget this year. And I know it's in a growth mode, and if all things
I
were,
think it was,
if it were a typical year, I'd say, yeah, let's get started on this project, except one thing's missing, and that's that we paid for this study and data, and no one's seen a presentation of it. I don't think you guys have.
I
We
didn't even know
certainly
it had
haven't.
occurred until I talked to Troy, because
Right, so
some of
it-
the stuff it was prior to my administration and.
I know,
wasn't made
I'm not
aware.
asking, I'm
But-
not putting anyone on the carpet,
What I'd like
I'm
to
just
do is
saying.
I'd like to find that study and do a presentation.
Yeah.
I have a number of presentations which I'd like to make to the town, that and the battery project and a couple other
Yeah,
projects. I just,
and then like maybe, you know, kind of a 10-year plan,
Right.
and how would that look, and, you know, where would we start? Because we're gonna be ultimately spending millions of dollars on this, and we're sort of
Right,
starting
and
now,
I don't think
doubling
it was
it.
double, I think we were at 350 and we asked for another 150, so it was a 50%
When
increase.
you ask for
Not-
325, it's 170,000 increase
Well, no,
year.
there was,
A budget
20
year over budget year, but we, you know, we haven't spent all of it yet this year, but yeah.
and me,
And now,
it is time for my nap.
Asphalt changes in the price of oil.
Oh, you're talking about all three lines and
Yeah.
I'm looking at asphalt.
You're looking at asphalt, it was
Yeah.
all three, and then it was 150 over all three. So it was, I believe it was 325 total,
Yes, for asphalt.
yeah, so we asked for a 50% increase. The Board of Selectmen thought we could take a $75,000 hit on that. Try to get that straightened out, you know. I
Again,
didn't ask for that 25,000 back, all I wanna do is get rid of the garbage and salt the roads.
but I think it's legit, I mean, you know, to say, we'd like to kind of see the plan. You know,
Sure.
because this is gonna be big bucks and we, you know, rather than jump in with a big increase right now. It's still retaining 70 grand or whatever, so.
It would be a,
$80
$50,000
grand,
increase.
yeah,
We asked for 150, you took out 100, so that would be a $50,000 increase.
Petroleum-based products.
Which varies in price depending on the year.
Hey, we like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm just saying that. It's-
Yeah.
Ready to move on to emergency services?
Road's gonna be oil.
So there's the fire marshals is the first one. I was looking at the request for the deputy fire marshal. And past couple of 3 years, they requested the same amount. 2022, 2023, though, only $600 was spent. 23, 24 to date, well, this up to January 24th, nothing had been spent. Is anybody able to speak on that?
Never, I know, not officially, but I know a little bit of that, it's just because those are stipends for the deputies,
Right.
which is just a minimal stipend for the deputies who help out. And I think in the transition with the new fire marshal a couple of years ago, there just was a shortage in available deputies, if I understood right, but that's not an official answer. That's what I heard. With my ears.
And then the fire marshal expenses too. That's 2750 each year. 22, 23, they only spent 410. This past one, up to January 24th, $178 on that one. Anybody questions on that?
what are you recommending?
The deputy fire marshal,
No, but I mean, are you recommending a cut?
yeah, I am. Yeah, I would suggest cut 50% from the deputy fire marshal. They never come close to spending that. And then the fire marshal expenses,
Budget.
probably cut around 2,000 from that.
So, I'm sorry, could you repeat what, out of each line, what you were thinking?
Yeah, deputy fire marshal, $750,000. I mean, $750.
Out of,
Whoa.
oh, okay.
Is it there?
That would solve everything.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, decided there.
And then $2,000 from the fire marshal expenses.
I'll give it back.
And the other one, how much?
Fire marshal expenses cut $2,000.
Do you guys, yeah.
I'm just trying to think.
I was gonna ask you, what
Yeah,
do
I think the
expenses cover
expenses,
usually?
the coverage for the software, right, for our ESL. The
His
software
portion
and
of
the
codes, I
And the
guess.
code of the expenses, yes. So the fire marshal pays a quarter, each department, so the fire, Wellington Hill, Wellington One, and the fire marshal split our reporting software. And then the fire marshal is required, he has to update his codes when they're due in 24.
Well, there's a,
I'd be really nervous to cut his expenses.
Well,
yeah,
the only
22
thing
is the
is-
new code cycle, so 25 is the next code cycle, so you have to buy a new subscription. and new
Yeah.
codes.
The thing is, he's spent like a couple of hundred, you know, and that's how it's tracking this year, it's under 200. So it looks like it's pretty over budgeted in terms of what his needs have been in the past.
I just know what it's used for, I don't know what
Yeah.
actually.
Like software's not likely to be in the thousands, is it?
Oh, yeah, we paid
For this though,
3,000
for this?
apiece. Yeah, because we split it quarter each. So that we
Okay,
pay,
and why is that not showing up then before?
Because it's on 4 different budgets.
I don't know
Yeah,
how
but
this
why
one
is
shows up.
So Marshall's is 1/4 of the total.
It's on ours is 20.
Why it's not actually spent.
So we paid 2.
Yeah.
So when
That
was
is
the last time that
confusing.
was up for renewal?
The response software?
Yeah,
Probably everything.
We pay every year.
Every year we pay
Yeah,
for it.
there's a subscription every year on that.
okay,
And that we don't, we have to have something electronic.
right, because 2022 to 23, you only spent $410. And then this,
I don't know.
and then, yeah, and then right now, up to January 24th, only 178.
What it's billed.
I don't either. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it's billed.
Maybe build the fourth quarter, third quarter.
We start in June.
Yeah.
Is it, so,
I know.
so maybe not the full 2,000, even though that looks like that would be roomy enough based on what's been spent before.
You're talking about 2,000 out of the expense line, like, to 300.
Yeah, no, Bruce recommended 2,000, I'm saying maybe not quite that much.
1,500.
Why don't we
Trying to get an.
recommend something like 2,000 out of the whole thing and they can decide between the lines what they need it for.
Well, that's how it works anyway.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
but we're reducing the.
I know, but you can't pick the line item.
Yeah. Well, I know, it's how it works,
Right.
but we try to give a little rationale for why we're thinking, and if it shows an underspending pattern, that's,
$1,000 from the expenses and $750 from the deputy fire marshal.
well, I was thinking, given that what they're saying about software unknowns, why not just take 2,000 out of the whole 231 and let them decide where they apply it, you know what I mean? Like,
They're gonna say anyway, they apply it.
yeah, they're gonna say anyway.
Any objections to that? $2,000 down there?
Is it 2,000 or 1,000?
2,000 total.
Out of 231.
Then there's one other thing too to consider. So he had in his letter that he sent, he was requesting a wage increase if non-union workers were to get an increase. Peter, has there been an increase?
There has not been an increase yet. The union negotiations start
April 19th?
April 19th. Thank you.
No problem.
That's something we've habitually done. He's just saying, I appreciate it if
Right.
you keep considering me. But that's something that town has done before.
Okay. All right, so next there is AEDs and dispatch fees.
It's a $3,000 adjustment. What is that? Why is it there? I don't see the difference between.
Donna, do you see that?
Down to the $3,000 adjustment on line 232. What is that?
It's only showing up in the far right column, not the middle column, as an adjustment.
So let me just get on the same line. The budget request is for 37,365.
Yeah,
Okay, now what are you asking me about an adjustment? So,
Well, there isn't one, but on the far column, it just shows.
what is the 3,000?
You guys had suggested, you had suggested some reductions last week?
I wasn't willing to help. Not in dispatch.
gotcha. What is the 3,000?
Yeah, what is it?
Oh, hold on. Now I see what you're looking at. The 3,000 over there is a random note, and that is,
Yeah,
Wellington Fire Department 1 gave up 3,000 from vehicle maintenance.
on your maintenance.
On the maintenance, yeah.
Yeah.
Vehicle maintenance, and it's just over there as a random note to myself. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with AEDs and dispatch fees.
There's nothing to see here.
And they're also, you guys, I think you probably have noticed this, but they don't all sync up with where they're taken out of. She didn't have room because there were multiple cuts in some areas. So some of those numbers do not relate, most of them don't relate to the line they're on as far as which department it is, so. Did you guys follow the math down there on, because we chose not to do the offset on, I think are we doing 10,000 of the 20,000 they recommended out of Fund 17 and Wellington 1 on their operating? And then the tower money is there, and then 5,000 donation from Union when they originally budgeted 15. So that's, when you look at, let's see. When you look at, I guess it's under, is it on transfer out ambulance?
Yes, it is.
Okay, when you look at that, that's like, those offsets being, Xed out, which is to the bad as far as budget cutting goes. So that's why it's a positive number, 16,275. And then that was, what would have been 20,000 that we offsets that we're not using. And then you subtract that 3725 over there. From that, that's how you get the 16,275. It's just kind of hard to follow the math on these one-liners.
Any further discussion on that? All right, we'll move on to Emergency Management Director, which is Tiny. There's cuts there. And that, transfer out the ambulance grant. So Peter, you know what, before we talk about the ambulance and all that, can you just talk about what we had discussed about mutual aid last week?
Oh, yeah.
Tom?
So, as I understand it, talking to a number of parties, there is a huge difference between our mutual aid to Towland and their mutual aid to us, and UConn's mutual aid to us and our mutual aid to them. Part of the reason for that is the dispatch protocols at TN. Because Towland you can't cover their east side. If they need backup to their east side, we go there, their west side gets covered by Vernon. But, yeah, and then when we need coverage, TN doesn't dispatch Towland to us first, they dispatch Yukon to us first. So there's a circular, it's like a circular pattern. It's not entirely Collins' fault, as I understand it.
Can I make a comment?
Yes,
So that's designed by the departments. So me being the chief of Wellington One, we run the ambulance for the town. I decide who, or the department decides who our mutual aid is going to be. We choose Yukon for a giant portion of ours. Because they're quicker, they have paid personnel, they can get here if we're not available. We don't use Talent for the purposes of, we know that they have staffing issues at night, stuff like that. Stafford, who is now 24/7, you've seen the reduction of the numbers there. But we do go there because their call volume is 3 times of what ours is compared to, or 3 times compared to what.
We go there 3 to 1 calls.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but it's not designed for them to come here except for the highway. Yukon typically does not go out to the highway. Stafford has a quicker shot at the highway. Tallinn comes out as second, third, and I don't mean just Wellington One, we do work together to do our plans. But it's designed this way for Yukon to come in as ours. Tallinn, the same thing. They use us because we're their closest ambulance. If we're not available, they use Yukon. For their western half, they use Vernon or Ellington. And some of that and I don't have the number off the top of my head, I didn't bring that, I apologize. But some of that number it's a third or fourth call in Tallinn. It's not unusual for Tallinn to be out on 2 calls during the day and have a third and fourth. That we're over there, Yukon's over there, or Vernon and Ellington, vice versa. Same for us. It's not uncommon anymore for us not to have 2 calls at the same time. That we're out doing a call in town and Yukon's coming over.
Mhm. And there's a certain rationale for us to be in that relationship with Yukon because they have a significant number of faculty and students in our town.
Correct, and
So-
they have a higher,
And they're closer to a large.
they're closer to a larger portion of town, and they have more personnel on. Where they're staffing
Right.
6 or 8 people, depending on what day they eat.
And they're financed by the state taxpayers,
Correct.
which we are too. So, I mean, we are all state taxpayers.
But that's the rationale.
But that's
by the-
different from mutual aid in a way, because there's a distinction between towns and Yukon.
Yeah.
So what,
Can I just comment on that?
sure,
That's true, but that's a misnomer in how the mutual aid is set up. When we meet as chiefs and figure out the mutual aid, we don't care one iota. That is completely irrelevant that Yukon is a state or whatever. It is what resources are close to the tasks.
okay,
And that is a larger resource because it's staffed better.
right,
There are
Right.
4 ambulances sitting in the Yukon Fire Station. They can staff easily 2 of them at any one moment, 24/7. So that is the reason that Yukon comes into Wellington a lot, which is the same reason that Wellington ends up going to Tolland a lot in the evening, because Wellington is available with a staffed ambulance and Tolland is not staffing their ambulance.
right.
So a lot of this is by design, not purely just the flow back and forth.
get
The
that.
flow may be designed in sort of a one-way fashion, because what resources are available. And that is really part of what comes into the problem with Tolland, is if they're not gonna staff at night, we are a resource in Wellington that's available to flow to them.
You know, it makes perfect sense if you're operating a regional system. And and that's what we're doing.
The
The
Tolland
problem
Dispatch
is-
Center is the regional
Also
hub,
regional hub.
right?
That what?
The 911 center, when he
Yeah,
says TN,
the Tolland
it's the
team. I know
911
what you mean.
dispatch center for the,
Yeah.
and they are regional,
Mhm.
20-something.
And we have a lot of crossover with TN and I get that, you know, with, you know, people in our departments who work there. So I get that and, you know, but it's why the math is hard for us to figure out. And you know this, Mike, because I believe you were sitting in this chair not long ago. Is because it's a big region and Wellington is shouldering more than its share, I would say. It's fair to say, because if there's no other town that, you know, Mansfield's flat with us, but I mean, the ratio with Tolland is 1 to 56.
Well, up to
We go-
January, it was 1 to 72.
No, I
Which
was
think goes
looking
to
at the
what
full
first
year.
Selectman was talking
I was
about, where
thinking-
he's talked before, where he's been trying to talk with the town leaders in Tolland.
This is,
I know,
this is
but-
also, because of their call volume, another thing is that that's part of the reason they have coverage at night. We're saying they don't have coverage at night. They do have coverage at night. They have volunteer coverage at night. And that the volunteer coverage isn't coming out, which is why we went to a 24/7
Get it?
ambulance in this town, is because it's hard to get people to get out of their bed at 2 a.m. when it's sleeting.
But what's happened de facto is we're providing that service to all the towns who don't have it. I mean, I don't know, does Stafford commit to 24/7? Or
Yes.
is it staffed 365 days a year?
365
all
now,
the
now it is,
sources.
yes.
So Stafford may be one of the other towns that does, but I don't think it's common. I'm not seeing that
Really?
it is.
So
Well, why,
everyone with the exception,
otherwise, why?
So-
Why would we be?
so with the
doing so many
exception of
calls.
us, or sorry, other than Towland, with
Mhm.
the exception of Towland, everyone around us, even Ashford, little Ashford, is going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They just put a post out for more personnel, because they don't have the volunteers. Everyone around us is paid.
Yeah, but Union doesn't have any ambulance service, right? Don't we provide all theirs?
We
Not
provide
an
all of theirs.
ambulance, yeah.
I look at Tallinn as a town of almost 15,000 people, we're
Right.
a town of 5,000
I-
people. They're more
Exactly.
developed, they got a bigger tax base,
I don't disagree with you.
and we're
And
heavy lifting.
we've had talks of
Makes no
trying to get
sense
it
me.
reduced.
None.
And they
We-
gotta know.
They do, but at the same time, even if we can't say no, that's the hard part.
I
No, I
understand
know.
that. It just
On the
doesn't seem,
downside is
doesn't
if
seem
we have a
right.
drastic,
Yeah.
if we take, and I'm sorry, I don't have, was it 179 last year?
No,
That number's sticking.
yeah, between July and January, it's 72 to 1.
72 to 1. So if we take those calls away, that's a significant drop to Fund 17 as well. So there is some backside of this that we do lose revenue somewhere.
So we have more going out than we have coming in.
I don't disagree with you,
So that's not.
but EMS, EMS
We, you know,
nowhere makes money.
I know we've talked about this a lot.
I-
It's just like, you guys have been toiling in the vineyards for years and decades for some folks. And I get it. You're just trying to get to the people and help them and in short order to the best, you know, to however well you can. All I'm doing is trying to figure out a way that we can sort of even the field as far as where the taxpayer burden is, because it's heavily on Millington. That's all I'm
I
saying.
I
I have-
understand that.
Perfect faith in what you guys do. It's not bad.
I have a suggestion, having sat on both sides of this table a lot.
Move on.
No, I'll save that for a few minutes from now.
I'm good with that.
No, Right now, this problem can't be solved with anything you're doing tonight.
Right,
You can't, it's not like you can say to the fire departments, we're gonna cut your budget equal to the mutual aid you're doing, stop doing it, right? So that's not
I'm
a
not
tool
saying
we
it.
can use.
yeah.
So it is a problem. We've been talking about it for years, right? I've led this conversation myself. This board can write a letter to the Board of Selectmen, as an example, and say, please help us figure this out with Thomas. He's already got a conversation going with Thomas. Maybe that helps him. I don't know. I'm just saying, that's an action item that we can take to try to change this conversation, because there is
It's been going
there is
on
an
for
imbalance.
years. I
I
know.
think Walter just said it perfectly. The size of the
Yeah.
town and the amount of activity,
No.
why is it this way?
Well, I know he's trying to have a
Population.
conversation with them about it, but on their end, it doesn't seem to be very urgent. He
Well,
fully keeps on giving. them
Will a letter
reasons.
from you guys help? I don't know.
Well, I just think you need to stress the urgency of the matter to him. I mean, he's a seasoned bureaucrat, so you just have to push him a little harder. And I know we can't do anything regarding this year, but as far as next year, you know, if it could be rectified, it would be fantastic. Because we're basically subsidizing their services that they don't want to be paying for themselves, and they have the money to pay for it.
And not for nothing, Tallinn Dispatch gave us a
And
50%
when we call,
increase last year
They're in Tallinn.
for the
They're
same
not coming to get
service.
us.
So,
Well, maybe that's another question. So while you're in Tallinn, how many people have died in Wellington waiting for
You
ambulance
kind of,
service?
yeah.
oh.
It's a joke.
It works that way.
But it's something to consider.
You count.
You don't wanna go there, Bruce.
I know, it's time to move on.
Like, yeah, well,
I just, I just feel like I need to tell you.
Well, to that point, you take the town calls first, basically, that's how that. If we're in town, yes, we take the
I
first
know
call,
it's
by law, we
hard,
have
it's
to take
hard.
the first.
But if they're
thing.
on their way to Talon and someone from Wellington calls, they're still going to Talon.
And
In that
UConn
case,
comes.
UConn's coming.
Yeah,
Unless we have to
or
pass
someone
the
else.
unless we go by, if we're driving by,
Oh.
different story. We can't pass an emergency, yeah.
Hold on, we'll be back to get you.
Incorporate that.
Breathe deep, breathe deep.
Yeah. We should keep moving.
All right, anything more on that? Fire department number one.
Haven't we already discussed the fire departments? Because they
We
were,
really did.
they were the guys that hung around all night. I feel
Well, I
like we've
thought
done
Mike,
this.
just Mike was here, weren't you?
Mike was here and Alex was here and they both,
We only had, we had a partial conversation.
Okay.
and we did some, we were doing like tedious cutting and they both like, they kind of like, oh, death by 1,000 cuts, and they thought, I guess we better put something on the table. So they both threw stuff
10,000 cuts.
in.
Alright. So we'll move on from both of the fire departments. And education, is there anything to discuss for education?
Thank you, Phil. For, I'm particularly, kind of wowed by what your special ed director did to go back at those, that transportation issue and find 30,000. That was, good hustle, or in like, in a week,
Phil, not to make you repeat stuff you've already repeated, I had a question posed to me this afternoon about MBR and special ed. How that, does it matter if it's outplaced or not? How does it?
No, good question. I looked at it today, actually. So the minimum budget requirement, this does hurt you because it's gonna go up, right? And the MBR goes up. But when you look at the legal requirements of how to meet MBR in the future, there are certain statutory reasons that you have to, that would allow you to cut. Like you'd have to see a reduction of students over the 5-year period when you get to it. So I'm gonna give you an example. If you had, and you don't, but I'm just giving you an example just to speak to something. If you had 3 students in the same grade that were all outplaced, and they all transitioned out at the same time, and suddenly you had a big savings, there is language in the law around the MBR that we could petition the Commissioner of Education to allow us to reduce the budget because of that reason. To me, I would have a really hard time with them not granting that. Because the same thing came up in my office today. I was like, well, MBR is going up. We've got to look to see, and there is a reason, there's a line in there that we could petition the commissioner, and it will allow us. To me, like, there's no better reason. Are you telling us we couldn't reduce our budget because they moved on? That would be absolutely crazy to me, but it's there.
So that's the rationale to outplace versus keep in-house? Maybe.
Keeping in-house is actually more expensive because they have all the resources in place. So if you were trying to run the same type of program for a student who's outplaced, you typically would see, and there's towns that do this when they're larger, they'll have a specific program that has its own administrator, they'll have their own social worker, they'll have their own school psych, they will have their own occupational therapist, they'll have their own physical therapist, and they'll have a behavior technician. And so add those 6 positions, you're starting to close in on a program, and I didn't even say special education teacher yet. You're closing in on $1 million bucks. So that's why people pay it's still expensive to pay to go out. But the other thing is people have tried to run programs in, and suddenly word gets out that they have a program, and guess what? I'm moving to Wellington so I can have access to that program. A neighbor did that, and they shut that program down and because they had like basically a billboard on the side of the highway. saying, come here, please. So, but I had the same question around MBR, and I do think we would have a really legitimate argument to say, if you had 2,200, I would be really frustrated as a superintendent, and I think the board would be too. If we had a $200,000 cut because we budget based upon need, and we were down $200,000 and we couldn't do that, that would be really frustrating. And so I think that's, you know, we would want to petition the commissioner at that point.
Anybody else? Peter?
Just a quick question, I ask this every year at the public hearing and never seemingly get an answer. Do we know, given all the circumstances we'll just talk about, what our MBR is now? So if we did have the petition, we would know where we're deducting from. We never know what that level is, it always seems to be lost somewhere in the state of Connecticut's bureaucracy.
It comes out at like, May or June, at a very unhelpful time.
It came out 1 year in October.
After it was, everything's passed, it's just, it's like,
How about last year?
yeah,
Do we know what the benchmark?
I have no idea what it is.
This is what,
Well, it's basically your budget, it's, if you don't, you'd have to look over 5 years, it's basically whatever you're setting for your budget number, if you have an increase. That's what your MBR becomes.
Okay, are we ready to move on now? Start voting on the appropriations.
There was one clarification I just wanted to bring up, and that is, and I'm sorry I didn't see this earlier. In human services, and Karen, is it Karen Cote on line there?
There is a Karen up.
Yeah, I just wanna. Karen, is that you? Can't see the names, the last name.
There is no last name.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll just point it out to you all and then explain it to her. Okay, so her narrative said she wants to increase the hours of her human services assistant from 8 to 15 hours a week at the minimum wage of $15.69 an hour. So, so I just did the math on it, and it really, that would, 15 hours at that rate would be, for 52, week year anyway, would be 12,238, and she's got 8,300 budgeted. Is there something I'm missing there, or is it just a math error?
She looks like she miscalculated the amount.
Okay, I would say at this point that it might be, my thought is live with what she's budgeted. Because this is not a year, where we really can do staff growth that much. And then, get some time in the job. She's a new director. And go from there as far as expanding any further in the next fiscal year or wherever. That's actually, it's under budgeted for the 8 hours that she's already got. She's got 8320, and I think it's, oh no, I'm sorry. It's about 6,500, 6,527. So, anyway, I think depending on that number might be okay, but I just wanted to point that out because I just tripped across it today.
Could that be grant funded?
It's not, she
The
is
balance.
under budgeted.
Yeah. She might be able to get a couple of hours out of what she's put in here, but this is 2,000 really, is all she's adding.
Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we move on? Right. So we'll start voting on the appropriations for each of the.
If you're starting to vote on appropriations, I have one thing. Stephanie brought up that for a public, hearing on the roads. There was a public hearing on the roads that occurred January 4th, 2023. It was recorded on Zoom and it's posted on the town.
You mean the results of the study?
Yes,
Okay, was that a selectman meeting?
I believe it was just a presentation. Was it a selectman meeting or was it
It was
just
a special meeting.
a
Okay,
special meeting for
Okay.
a presentation?
so we'll go to a Zoom near us to,
2024 or 23?
2023, January 4th, 2023. So
Oh,
I mean,
but they didn't
because I
have
thought it
done
was just
yet.
done.
Yeah, didn't they just finish it?
they had the hearing then, that's all I
I
know.
walked in on it, so I know there was a presentation on the road study.
Yeah, I was still on board of finance.
Where, was it when they were trying to get the, like, to plan the study, or it was actual
They-
results?
I think it was the end of the presenting results.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, he told us about it a few
time
weeks,
flies when you're having fun, I guess.
a few months ago. I was with Peter and he came in and
I
talked.
haven't
I didn't get my
watched it
invitation.
myself.
Wow, that was over a year
Can I
ago.
make a unique request?
Yes,
That you consider having a conversation about appropriation for Board of Education first, considering we're always last, and I'd love to see that happen first for once. I know, we can all turn around and be
Yeah. I think it's reasonable to talk about, it's reasonable to talk about Phil's, you know, and the Board of Ed's superb effort of coming up with some, you know, good relief for us in this budget. And, you know, even adding another 10,000. And then Pete, you're saying you may see 20,000 from Novus in your budget, but you just don't know yet?
Yeah, the numbers that Phil and I worked out together, it looks like 20,000. I just haven't gotten confirmation from Novus yet. We sent them the request for the numbers at like 1 o'clock this afternoon, so I'm not really surprised. that we
But Phil,
haven't
you
got it.
did get confirmation, is that right?
Yeah, so we had our meetings separate. When we did our Novus meetings, we do our annual checkup, and so that was one thing I'd asked about. Because we were getting a good score, good grade on where we were at with our IT services. I had asked about the potential of moving to a 4-day week if that were, you know, if we were in budget trouble. And maybe I jinxed myself in that, because here we are. And so I had numbers already. They had put the town numbers in as well, but it wasn't the full breakout. And so that's why what I saw, I shared with Peter, and that's why they had called. You know, if you do your regular appropriation, I don't know if you have the ability to change it after the fact, the number.
I believe we can change it at the hearing, correct?
If you have that number then.
If we have the number by the hearing.
So wouldn't that be reasonable to expect that there would be relief on your salt budget if you really needed it, and on bulky waste?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's coming, it's just a question of time.
yeah,
I know you don't like it, I can tell, but.
yeah, I don't think that anticipated savings to the general fund is the same thing as refunding my sand and my salt and garbage. That's just my feeling, is that I'd really like to see that on the budget line so that, you know, because I believe that reflects the reality.
Can I make a motion
Yes, you may.
to accept the budget request for the Board of Education for $9,877,772?
Second.
So we'll do a roll call and stuff on these.
So,
Technically
is there any other discussion, or we're good?
Are you on the room?
I think that's our discussion and stuff.
Well, I thought I already asked for discussion.
No, we're gonna do it.
You do it by, you have to do it
After the
one,
second,
but I don't think.
I got nothing to say.
Where is that on the, is that at the end
It's
of
on
the
the
second
last
page?
it's the last item on the last page.
Or-
No?
Okay.
Well, they went.
I mean, I just thought if someone
Just in
did.
case.
Did anybody want to discuss it before it's brought up to vote?
Roll call vote?
Yep.
Roll call vote. Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Malhouse,
Yes.
Mr. Prusa,
Abstain.
Mr. Parcell,
Yes.
Ms. Summers,
Yes,
and Mr. Lawler.
Abstain.
And motion passes.
Now, we'll go back to up to the top, starting up at probate court.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0121 probate court for $4,426.
Second.
Any discussions on that?
I'm sorry, who was the second?
This is for,
Thank you.
any discussions? Okay, Lisa,
Okay, we're doing a roll call vote. Ms. Summers,
yes,
Mr. Parcell,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
and Ms. Malhouse,
Yes.
and Mr. Prusa.
Yes.
All in favor?
do we have to do a roll call vote if it's unanimous?
No, we don't have to.
Well,
You don't have to if no one's
We're all
on Zoom
here,
and
yeah,
it's
just
unanimous.
nobody objects.
yeah, because it's a long night
Yeah.
and some of these are pro forma.
All right.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0126 election official for $71,839.
Second,
Any discussions on that? Right, Lisa?
Do a roll
Okay,
call vote?
is anybody in favor of that?
I'm in favor of it.
In favor.
Any objections?
So everyone in favor, aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
All right,
Unanimous.
yay, surging ahead.
All right, Board of Finance,
I move to accept
131.
the budget request for 0131 Board of Finance for $5,018.
Second.
any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Everybody said aye, yeah.
All right, Treasurer,
Make a motion.
132.
I make a motion to accept the budget request for 0132 treasurer for $11,474.
Anybody for discussion?
Second,
Nobody for discussion? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All right,
Unanimous.
unanimous. 133, the auditor.
You got that one, Bruce?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0133 for the auditor for $46,095.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just want to ask Pete, is there any movement on that, Pete?
On what? I'm sorry.
On the auditor? Contract.
No. I have talked to the, manager of Bolton, and, they were unaware that they were trying to renew their contract a year early. They did their math wrong. So we're still,
No, we're talking about auditor.
oh,
We did that the
Oh,
last.
that's the auditor.
oh, that's the assessor.
Yeah.
Oh, the audit contract? That, sorry. That's at the, lawyer. He said he'd have it to me by the end of the week, so he hasn't gotten it to me yet, so it should be in, that's it, that's the $77,000.
It's 46.
It's auditing services and our current firm, Mahoney Sable, is on the last
Oh,
year. of the
Okay,
contract.
never
That-
mind,
That's.
never mind.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Unanimous.
Next, motion for number 135, Board of Assessment Appeal.
I just got a question, and I'm on this board, okay, is that would
You're
that
on
be best?
assessment
Yes,
appeals?
I am. Would that be best to abstain?
Point of order, I can answer that for you.
Yes, please.
Do you get paid anything from being on that
Yes,
board?
I do.
You can't be on it.
Then, I think
You should recuse.
you should recuse yourself from the vote, not abstain, but you should recuse yourself from the vote.
Thank you.
Problem. I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0135, Board of Assessment Appeals for $1,498.
Second. Oh, I defer.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Can we just make sure the record
Just
knows
make-
that he
recuse
recused
Yes,
himself?
absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next,
Motion
I
to
move
accept budget request
sorry.
for 0161 Conservation Commission for $1,500.
Second.
any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0171 Planning and Zoning for $157,606.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
For the planning and zoning,
Yeah.
the number was 157.
Okay.
She was asking who.
Oh.
It was Jeff.
Planning and zoning. Okay, I have a question about that. Is that, Donna, does that reflect the cuts we were talking about earlier?
$2,000 is part of that.
Anything else?
Just, does anyone have any comment or discussion about that after Mike spoke or?
No.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous. Next,
Motion to accept the budget request for 0172 zoning board of appeals for $5,147.
Second.
any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, next,
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 0175 Economic Development for $18,000.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Abstain.
Abstain,
Oh,
I
one abstain.
apologize.
All right,
Do we need to,
Motion passes.
given that, do we have to do a roll call?
No.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0176 in the wetlands for $2,000.
Second?
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Mr. President, was that?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous.
Move to accept the budget request for 861 Board of Finance contingency for 15,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004 transfer out Parks and Rec for $94,516.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Now to the Board of Selectmen.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 0111 selectmen for $160,234.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0130 accounting services for $291,343.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 0134 Assessor for $162,028.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0137 Revenue Collector for $97,660.
Second.
Do we have discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Auntie Cheryl, looking for Grammy.
Filled all the posts, so I'm kind of a floater.
Unanimous.
Can you mute?
Unanimous.
It was Tracy.
Tracy?
Motion to accept the budget request for 0141 town council for 32,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Does that reflect a cut or not? That does not, does it?
It does not.
Okay,
I think we did that. So.
yes, I do too, but it was also illegal, something else.
Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
All right,
Motion to accept the budget for 151 town clerk for $119,770.
Second.
all right, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0181 town office operations for $277,614.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 182 town hall operations for $8,123.
Second,
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0183 consulting engineers for $10,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
just want to be sure that does reflect a cut, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Next,
Motion to accept the budget request for 0185 senior center operations for $44,508.
Second,
any discussion for that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request 0233 health district for $32,925.
second,
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimous.
Take this next one.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0235 fire main and hydrants for $9,635.
second,
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Jeff?
No, Bob.
I was gonna tell you this won't be unanimous.
Last.
Mr. Krusak, is that an objection?
Yes.
Pro
Motion
forma.
Motion to accept the budget, request for 241 building official for 41,480.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0311 public works for $1,496,410.
That's without adding anything back in.
Second. You discussing, Jeff?
We have any
That's
discussion
with,
on
that's with the stuff we took out, correct, Donna? That reflects the,
126,
Um,
or what is it?
The 126 reflects $100,000 reduced from asphalt, 6,000 reduced from sand, and 20,000 reduced from salt.
Any discussion?
And that's in the number you just said, right? That was his question.
Yes.
all right, thank you.
No, but Peter wanted to add 10 back in, so we have not done that.
We did do that.
You want some?
No.
Um,
We're good with that.
Yeah, we're good for it, Pete.
Okay,
Checks in the mail.
I'll keep that in mind.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
Motion passed.
Next,
A motion to accept the budget request for 0342 cemetery for $2,000.
Second.
any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
So that's part of it. It is.
doesn't go up.
I know. Same
Motion.
comment every year.
Yep.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0351 transfer station for $287,420.
Second,
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 811 social security for $98,844.
second. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Prusa.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept budget request for 0821 unemployment of $1,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0831 employee insurances for $247,354.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0841 pension for $45,490.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Next.
Motion to accept budget request of 0851 insurances for $95,077.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request of 0871 miscellaneous for $2,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 910 debt services for $165,000, which is a library bond payment, by the way.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 0930 capital expenditures for $65,000.
Second.
Any dis-
Donna, can I, that 65, what is that for?
Two projects.
Because didn't we take out the carpet?
Yes,
Yeah, but 64 was removed and it left 65, is that correct?
yes, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I just want to make that they were close enough, close numbers.
They were.
And I'm like, oh no. All right, I'm ready to vote.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I make a motion to accept the budget request for 004, transfer out capital reserve for $1,531,000.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the budget request for 0004 transfer out handicap vehicle for $1,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out housing authority for $2,182.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004 transferred out accrued sick days for $5,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004 transfer out dog fund. Is that right? They're both on 00? Yeah.
Mhm.
For $26,835.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, the educate me was the dog fund.
That's
Oh,
the.
that- the dog fund,
Okay.
Wow.
Put money in.
We have all this old terminology.
Okay.
those in favor say aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out human services for $83,014.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out open space for $25,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Why are you frowning, Christina?
Oh, no reason.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm good.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out library for $263,962.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget request for 0231 fire marshal for $27,168.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0232 AEDs and dispatch fees for $37,365.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all, you got it.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request 0234 emergency management director, $7,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out ambulance for $622,588.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion to accept the budget request 0-004, transfer out Wilton Hill Fire Department number 1 for $181,300.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Question. You said Willington Hill Fire Department number 1, that's
It's
Two different
Wellington Fire
departments.
Department number 1. You need to restate.
He's
Oh,
tired.
am I that burned out?
Good job with
I'll
that.
amend the
He's
motion.
already merged them.
I'll amend the motion for 0-004, transfer out Wellington Fire Department 1, $181,300.
We need to vote.
We probably should.
Alright, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Motion to accept the budget request for 0-004, transfer out Wellington Hill Fire Department for $161,360.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
And we are.
Yeah, we'll hit the, did you just hear that?
I'm trying to combine you.
Much faster.
Do we vote on Region 19 or
No.
No.
That's why we voted.
We just pay the bill. We don't get, we don't do this.
Yeah.
Well, you can vote on it, it's citizens vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Donna, all those new changes from Phil are in here, the 10,303, whatever. Okay.
Can I make another motion, which is to apply $700,000 instead of the $500,000?
I'll second that.
Which will bring the mill rate down by, I don't know what exactly.
Can you
Well,
put
we
that
do-
in the calculator? I think it's 2.41 or something, but I'm not sure with all the new numbers.
Yeah, just under.
2.51.
2.51.
Say it again.
State the motion.
The motion is to apply $700,000 of fund balance, instead of the 500,000 that was in there as a placeholder.
Thank you. And I second.
We don't necessarily do it that
We don't?
way. Yeah, we only do, when we set
Well,
the
we
bill,
set the mill rate.
which is not tonight.
Oh, that's true.
It makes a good point. We actually didn't vote to set the actual bill rate.
But we do want to be able to tell people what the mill rate looks like it is.
Right.
Can we discuss it? Or
I think we are.
Yeah.
kind of are, aren't we?
It's a motion.
Did somebody second?
So when
that
would,
motion?
when would the
I
meeting
did.
Oh, you
set
did?
the mill rate?
That's at the,
That's later.
It's after the vote.
public hearing.
When it's after the vote. Like,
But
Yeah,
this is separate and distinct. If she's moving this, that's really not setting the mill rate. I mean, it does sort of,
It affects it.
but we're not, if we don't move to accept it, aren't we okay saying this is our intent? Which may be a good thing right now.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Uh-oh,
offer a thought on that?
Yes.
I hate when
Historically,
he does
I
that.
believe if I remember right, well, hopefully it's useful. If I remember right, that is the reason for the meeting after the referendum.
Right.
It's not just to actually vote on the mill rate itself, but if there are any adjustments left that need to be made. And that can be in the form of a couple things. If there's new information, either from the vote or the hearing or from revenue that changed drastically or whatever, you make final adjustments to make the numbers work. And it might be a matter of, at that meeting, you say, we advertised a mill rate of 2.51 to the taxpayers, and now we can lower it slightly because we have new information. Or you might say, the information is not quite as good, but we promised the taxpayers 2.51, so we're gonna make a slight adjustment in the fund balance or whatever to get to the 2.51 we told them. So I think that happens. This could come up again then.
Well, come up with a public hearing, go on, yeah.
Well, the public hearing, though, you can't vote to change it as a
Yeah,
board,
right.
because you're presenting. But you can take that information and change it later. So I think the motion is not out of order. You just may change it at the meeting
yeah,
after the
I mean, maybe
referendum.
I could friendly amend it to say, for the purposes of, making a recommendation moving forward.
And I'll friendly second it.
Just a quick question, I don't wanna mess that up, but
It's not-
aren't we putting everything that we do here tonight forward
Yes.
for the town to vote on? So then wouldn't they be voting on that? And if we had to, we would vote to change the fund balance again. So
Yes.
shouldn't we then actually vote on it and make that change if that's what we decide to do now? Let it go to the people to vote on, and then when we afterwards do it again if we have to.
Yeah, I mean, my guess
Yeah,
is,
I just never remember doing it after you get all the stuff.
my guess is that most of the adjustments would be in our favor, like Pete hearing back on the Novus contract or something like that. So that would be to the good. I think it's good for this year in particular to take some of the scare out of it because, and talk about the fund balance tonight. Because why let people twist in the wind if that's the intent of the board, if we have a vote that passes on this, so. But I see your point. I mean, we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna have to tweak it anyway, probably.
Yeah, so I mean, we could tweak it back if we could, you know what I mean, we can always reduce it.
Yeah, I don't think it's complicated. I think you can approve the motion tonight and then make an adjustment at that later meeting when you set the mill rate.
Yeah, if we need to.
So we have a motion, second, discussion, so Donna, what's the projected mill rate look like with that in there?
251, right? 2.51 increase. So, the actual mill rate would be 3266, 60,
16.
2.51 increase in what it is today.
Yes,
Peter, you had something off on
no, you're reading the existing one.
yes.
So it would be
67.
3467,
Right, go on.
yeah.
Here, we'll finish 97 Cross Road. I want to, point of order, I want to expand on what Mike was saying about the public hearing. This is an important part of our process. We'll have a public hearing, and that's the town's first exposure to the budget. Yes, you've all been working on it since January. No one outside this room really understands what's happening yet, but they will at that public hearing. So I would ask the following. One, I'd like to hear clearly tonight what the expense increase is in our budget on the expense side, the dollar amount and the percentage amount, so we fully understand that. That'll be helpful to get people to a public hearing. Then it's incumbent upon all of you to listen carefully at that public hearing to what the public says, reacts, acts for at that meeting. And that's not, and then you can make adjustments, changes afterwards based on what happens at that public hearing. That's not the end of the process. Then it goes to the town meeting, and the town will have a greater discussion of that budget and decide whether the town's comfortable with that, wants to send it back to the Board of Finance, wants to send it forward to referendum. This is how it works, or how it's supposed to work. It's not, we just make appropriations, send it forward, and that's it. We want the involvement of our townspeople, especially this year. So if we can hear at least tonight what the increase is, so I believe every single appropriation was unanimously approved tonight. So if we can have a tally of that and understand that, that'll be helpful for townspeople to come to the public hearing and begin the process of understanding the budget. Thank you.
Be able to go
Just a
on.
point of order. That was not a point of order.
Right.
That was a misuse of point of order. Point of order is when you have a question about the process that's being used, how the meeting's being run, or a move that was made by the board. That was present to speak. Valuable comments. I agree with the comments, but that was present to speak. You can't use point of order to be present to speak.
Where were we on that?
I made the motion, Steph seconded, then I made a friendly motion
Discussion
then-
to recommend that.
to recommend that we increase it to 700, which would reduce the mill increase to 2.51
From,
from,
Well, 32.16,
oh yeah.
and then it would, you know, put it at 3467 if we don't make further adjustments and go, after we go through the processes we just discussed.
And we talked a little bit about fund balance last week, but, I feel comfortable with the 700. That puts us at 10% of our, what you call it, the expenditure appropriation, which is right in the middle of where we want to be. We want it to be between 8 and 12, so we're right at 10, basically.
So how many months of money do we have to have on fund balance?
Well, yeah, that's the way it works out to be 1.2, but yeah. That's it, that's just, I don't know why you think about it that way, but that's what the auditors told us a few years ago is between 8 and 12% of your
3 months.
3 months.
I know 3, yes, right, that they said last week.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we
it's,
We're there.
the whole thing,
yeah,
I made the comment.
yeah.
The auditor says the typical standard is 3 months, but we don't do that. We do 8 to 12%,
right,
which is less than 3 months.
right.
That keeps us within.
Mhm.
Keeps, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
Is there opposed?
No.
Motion passed.
That is it for tonight on appropriations. Do we have any correspondence?
Can I just ask a really quick question? Sure. Can you just tell me what the email's payroll ended up being? Because I didn't know what
The
the,
ambulance payroll
yeah, so it was 620,
ended up being,
622,588.
622,580, thank you.
Have your share spent already?
And it was 10
That's
or
with-
20.
that's with the correction from, for the raises that were, the excess raise that was in there. Well, it projected like 3.8,
Okay,
and we did that the night, the night we were cutting the budget.
yes,
you
I
were
had
there.
it as 2.78.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry.
No, actually,
You're
we
correct.
did three,
You're correct.
we did three, because that's
Yeah.
what your existing one
Yep.
is. So
Thank
we
you.
didn't go all the way down
So
to
622
2.8,
and
I don't
only
think.
10 out of Fund 17 or 20?
It was 10,
10, thank you.
and then correcting the union
Union.
contribution, so that's
Thank you.
another 10. That's why yours is
Yep.
16,000 up.
Yep.
Minus that raise differential.
Thank you.
All right, anybody present to speak? Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. We have anybody for present to speak?
Is that Jim Marshall's hand? Oh, is that the cursor?
That's.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't-
A question, if I may, which I know is not really appropriate question to me, but what is the increase when you total all of up to now?
See how that does?
Maybe I didn't hear it, but
The dollar increase, you mean?
the dollar and percentage, if that's possible.
I don't have it, I just would have to calculate it out. So we can do that. We just have to gather some numbers.
Well, do you want to send it to me tomorrow?
Yes, I would love to send it to you tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then I'll forward it to Peter.
And when
Can I
can,
put it on the town website? so we
yeah,
can-
the
Yeah,
town
have it all
website,
of us.
like that all happens pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. because-
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
minutes.
Anybody else for present to speak? Good and welfare. And just let everybody know I'm gonna be out of town next week. I'm gonna be in a remote area of the woods with no service. If I get any service, I'll respond to any emails that anybody sends me. If you don't hear from me, you'll hear from me at the end of the week. I'll be back Friday evening.
That's what I call blowing town after a difficult budget year.
I was gonna do it last
Can we
week, but
go?
I couldn't. No,
It's a board retreat.
there's only room for my wife and the dog and that's it.
Motion good and welfare, right? UConn's up 45-33.
And have time to spend it, so we gotta go.
What did you say it is?
45-33.
Is there any left? It's not. even-
Yeah, it's,
Yes.
just started the second half, we're 3 minutes into the second
Yeah,
half.
my husband's looking for me. I have no.
Or 2.5.
Motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
I don't know who seconded.
Oh, you first.
I said, motion, and then he.
Second.
Thank you. And you would say, I was.